All right, so as Rob said, this talk is all about product managers. How to find great PMs, how to evaluate them through interviews, and then how to close them and convince them to work for your company. So I thought I'd start by asking a question, which is, what do product managers do anyway? Because if you ask different people, you'll probably get different answers. And I think that's because it turns out the PM role is actually pretty vague, even to the engineers and designers that we work with every day. So let me give you an example of this. I was at Twitter earlier this year, and we ran an internal survey to all of engineering, product, and design. And we asked, when thinking about each of the following functions, how clear are the roles and responsibilities to you? And we asked this about engineers, designers, and product managers to engineers, designers, and product managers. So let's start with engineering. Engineering was actually pretty clear. Pretty much everyone knows what engineers do, what the role of engineering is. All three functions say they know what engineers do, and that's because engineers write code. You can see what an engineer does. Designers were a little less clear. So it turned out that only 50% of engineers say they knew what a designer did. But I can explain that one too, because a lot of engineers work on back-end systems, they work on infrastructure, they don't work with great designers every day, so they don't know, and so I get that one. But then when you get to product managers, only half of designers and half of engineers said they knew what PMs actually do. So that's interesting. We should dig into that. But the other funny thing before I do that is, the takeaway in this slide is that in all three cases, product managers know exactly what everyone else does. So that maybe says something about product managers. Okay, but so why is this? Why is the PM role vague? I think it's because the PM role varies a lot by company, team, and even individual. And so people have come up with different ways of describing what is the PM job. If you read the tech blogs, you might have seen this Venn diagram. The PM is at the center of UX, tech, and business. I think that's pretty accurate. Or maybe you've seen this quote, the PM is the CEO of their product. And that, I think, is another good sort of shorthand way of describing the PM function. But after working with hundreds of PMs across different companies, here's my definition. The PM is responsible for articulating what a winning product looks like, rallying the team to build it, and iterating until they get it right. So there's a lot going on there. Let me just say it one more time. Articulating what a winning product looks like, rallying the team to build it, and iterating until they get it right. That's kind of an interesting job description when you think about it. Who can do this job? What kind of people can do this job? What qualities do they need to have? I think there's some must-have qualities, some should-have qualities, and some bonus qualities. And so I'm going to go through each one, because this way we'll figure out what kind of people we're looking for. So on the must-have qualities, I think they need to have these four things. An outstanding intellectual ability, and in particular, the ability to synthesize information. They need that in order to know what the winning product is. And then also, excellent communication, leadership, and strong culture fit at your company. Those things are going to be required to articulate the winning product and also to rally the team to build it. And I will tell you, after working with many, many product managers, I've never seen a great product manager that didn't have all four of those. I really believe they're must-haves. Okay, on the should-have. So also nice to have many things in this column. A knack for knowing what users or customers want, to know what the winning product is. Strong analytical and strategic thinking, that's very important on the iterating till you get it right part. And then a technical background and entrepreneurial spirit, that's so you can rally the team to build it. And so a great product manager will have everything in column A and column B. A good product manager, I'll probably take half the things in column B. And that's a pretty solid person. And then bonus is stuff like, can they write code? Can they make designs themselves in Photoshop? Can they run their own analysis? At a startup, this stuff is great because it's, you're short on hands. At a bigger company, you tend to actually have people who do these things specialized, so you don't need the PM to do it. But it's nice to have. So that's sort of my definition of what a product manager does and the qualities they must have. But the thing you should ask yourself is, what do you want PMs in your company to do? What qualities are you looking for? And I think my definition is probably like 70% correct for most companies, but if you're a 2,000-person SaaS company with a large sales team, you might have sort of a different PM archetype in mind than if you're a 50-person social company. So ask yourselves these questions. And then once you have the answer, we're ready to go actually look for these PMs. So how do we find them? So we're searching LinkedIn, we're browsing profiles. What are we going to look for? I would say that there is no single PM archetype, but there's probably a handful of personas. And so what I've done here is I've picked 5 anonymized LinkedIn resumes. We're going to step through them one by one. All 5 come from very diverse backgrounds. All 5 of them turned out to be great product managers. So let's go through them. So I wanted to start with the slam dunk. This is the sort of resume with all the pedigree, the classic product manager pedigree. So computer science at Brown, which is a great CS school, then was a software engineer writing Xbox 360 games, associate product manager at Google, and then a product manager at YouTube. The associate product manager at Google program, I'm biased obviously, but I think it's a fantastic program. Any program that sort of prepares product managers straight out of school and turns them into great product managers is good in my book. And also I like the diversity of experience here. At Google, as the APM, they worked on AdSense, which is very advertiser and publisher facing, but then at YouTube on search and discovery, very end user facing. So I like the diversity I see in this resume. You definitely want to talk to this person. They might not be a slam dunk at your company, but I think it's worth a conversation to find out. Okay, next profile, the rookie prospect. So this one I think is very high risk, but very high reward. Because this person has no full-time work experience. You're hiring them relatively straight out of college. So what I like here, the signs that I see that I might want to take a chance on this person, are that number one, they went to Olin College, which for whatever reason is a fantastic product manager school because it tends to produce these people who are very technical, so robotics major, but also very creative, very in touch with the humanities. And this person also, you can see, was a course assistant in history. And then was a PM intern at Microsoft, where they worked on Windows and various UI things. So again, I like the diversity here, the technical background married with sort of the creative user-facing aspects. I think this person is definitely worth a phone call. You'll have to see whether you trust a 21-year-old sort of running product at your company, but I think it's worth a phone call. Okay, next one, the Mckinsey Refugee. So I think I thought I had to talk about this one because you see a lot of this these days, people from consulting and finance who want to come over into tech. And I think a lot of people from McKinsey make great product managers because they have that analytical thinking, that strategic mindset. But you have to check for, do they have a passion for users and technology, and are they going to be bossy to engineers? Because for whatever reason, these are the 2 pitfalls that I've found in sort of people with this background, is that you got to make sure they're in it for the right reasons, they're excited about technology. And so this person, I see that, studied computer science in college, was an engineer. And then you just have to talk to them in person to figure out, are they going to be the kind of person who can lead through example and not through kind of bossiness? This person whose resume this is actually works on my team now. He's a fantastic product manager. So I assure you this can be done. Okay, next one. The engineer or designer turned PM. I love this. I love this because if a person is a great engineer or designer and then has the product skills, you know they're going to be good at the part that comes working with engineers and designers. So the things you have to look for here, now this is a pretty straightforward engineering resume. Engineer at VMware, engineer at Facebook. Where are the signs that this person is a product thinker? I found them up here in the summary. So I have a strong focus on usability, and I like direct interaction with the users of whatever I'm working on. Not every engineer will say that. Some will say the opposite. And also the second part, familiar with many different kinds of programming languages and will learn whatever is necessary for the task at hand. That's super, super entrepreneurial. I really like that. And this person has gone back and forth from being a product manager to an engineer, back to an engineer, back to flipping back and forth at Facebook, and he's great at both. Okay, last one. The marketer or biz dever turned PM. This one is a little more challenging because you will talk to many, many great marketing people and many great biz dev people, and they can kind of dazzle you. They sound really, really good at talking about products, but you have to measure, can they actually build stuff? Is this a person who has built something? And so again, I see the signs in this resume that this person has. Typically led deals that had deep technical or product integrations. As a co-founder, prototyped dozens of ideas and launched 3 products on FB platform. And then again, the computer science degree. And this person also, great product manager. So this is actually probably a good point to talk about, is the CS degree required? Is a technical background required to be a product manager? I don't think it's strictly required, but it really, really helps. And if you don't have it, you better spike on some of those other attributes. So that's sort of where I stand on that. Okay, so now we have found these great PMs. How do we interview them? How do we evaluate them? 3 stages of the typical PM interview. The phone screen or coffee, the one-on-one loop, and then the panel presentation. And I'm going to skip the phone screen and coffee. That's mostly about finding mutual fit. If you're a startup, half the time it's convincing this person to actually come and talk to the rest of your team. You're mostly in sell mode. So I'll leave the phone screen or coffee up to everyone here. But I want to focus on the one-on-one loop and the panel presentation. So first of all, one-on-one loop. Who should interview this person? Who should talk to them? I think this is a pretty good sample of people to talk to them. If you're a small company, 5 to 7 people, your founders, any other PMs you have, and then leaders from engineering, design, and the business side of the house. That's a pretty good set of people to talk to them. And then as your company gets bigger, let's say 500 people, at that point you probably have a VP of product, you probably have several other product managers, and then again, somebody from eng, design, and biz. That's a good panel for this interview. So what are some good questions? What should we ask them? I'm going to go through 4 example questions, ones that I've found to be pretty good. And again, these questions are going to try to hit at these attributes that we found earlier, the ones from the must-have and the should-have columns. Okay, so first example question. This one's a product question, and it measures those 3 that are bolded on the left. Name an app you really like. Tell me all the features the team had to build to create the app, and then tell me how you'd improve it. So the bad answer here is just going to be pretty superficial. They're not going to get into a lot of product details. They'll say something fluffy like, I like Instagram. It's fun and simple. It grew. Something sort of superficial, maybe not that superficial, but something sort of on that order. A good answer, the candidate is going to get excited about the product details. They're going to tell you, Instagram is simple and fun because they got so many details right. The editing and filter UI is so easy to use but so powerful. The original design that they had with square photos made the feed UI and all the grid UIs super orderly, super simple. There's a lot of functionality on the profile when you think about it. There's things like follow, request to follow, and block. Likes, super easy to give. You can double tap, but also fun to get. They get pushed to you in real time. Simple, small things like there's no concept of a caption. A caption is just equal to the first comment. That's a simplifying assumption. And then videos that autoplay on mute. Instagram was one of the first apps to do that. So as you talk to this person, you're going to find them getting all excited about these little product details. That's how you know the difference between a passionate product person and kind of a superficial thinker. Okay, second question, technical question. So in as much detail as possible, tell me what happens when I type yahoo.com into my browser and hit enter. What happens? The bad answer here is going to be a little clueless. I see the Yahoo homepage, right? Isn't that what happens? The better answer here is going to know the basics of the HTTP request and response loop and be able to sort of walk you through it. So your browser generates an HTTP request, a DNS lookup gets the IP address from the host. We open a socket to that IP address and send the request. The server receives the HTTP request along with all the cookies. We'll do things like check to see if the user's logged in from the cookies. It'll then hit a chain of internal Yahoo front-end and back-end services, generate the HTTP response, which is just this long string of HTML, send it down to the browser, which the browser will render and parse, construct the DOM, and then things like CSS, images, and JavaScript are loaded, and then modify the DOM. And they'll talk about this for about 5 minutes in detail. And I think this is a good level-setting technical question for product managers. They don't have to get every single aspect of this, but they should, if they've done any kind of programming in the last 5 years, they'll know how to answer this question. And if they say they've done programming in the last 5 years and they're clueless on this question, that's a really, really big red flag. So I like this as a level-setting question for product managers. Okay, next one, leadership. Tell me a concrete example where you disagreed with the engineers and designers on your team. What did you do? So this happens every single day, and so a good product manager should be able to talk about this, right? A bad answer here is going to have a bunch of yellow flags you're going to spot. There's going to be some finger pointing. There's going to be an overall negative tone. There might not be very much self-awareness on the side of the candidate. And a good answer is going to show leadership. So they will have diagnosed root causes. They'll have communicated openly. They'll show humility. They'll have had concrete ideas to avoid gridlock. So a great example I heard from a candidate was, I couldn't agree with my engineering and design team on this one feature they wanted to build. I wanted to do something different, but they all wanted to do it that way. So I said, okay, let's time-bound it. We'll do this idea, but if it doesn't pay off in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, we're going to change it to this other idea. And I thought that was a great solution to avoid gridlock, a really, really proactive solution. Knows when to push back versus disagree and commit, which is important for teams. Knows when to escalate and when not to escalate. And overall, a positive, sort of mature leadership tone to this conversation. That's a good answer. Okay, fourth question, last one. Strategy question, vision question. What are all the implications of self-driving cars? So this one is kind of open-ended, but it's fun to kind of think through this with the candidate. The bad answer here is either just going to bore you, or it's going to be superficial, or it's going to be just completely disorganized. The good answer is going to shows vision and imagination about what's going to happen with the space. Maybe car interior design will totally change. Rather than sitting face forward in these car seats, we'll be seated around a coffee table as the car drives 500 miles an hour. Car ownership will go to zero, so garages and driveways won't need to exist anymore. Those will be anachronistic. Ride sharing will be more efficient, much less traffic. LA can stop widening its freeways. This is an amazing answer that I heard recently, which is Google will open source all the software. Google will crack the code on self-driving software and then open source it so that any car manufacturer can build self-driving cars, much like they did with Android. And so everyone will produce these self-driving cars, and Uber's valuation will plunge to zero. I have no idea whether that's true or not, but I thought that response was pretty creative, and I offered that guy a job. Things like competition between the major players, Google, Tesla, Uber, and Apple. And then overall, some kind of organizational framework around their answer, which I didn't really do. But someone who could say, from a user perspective, it'll do this. From a societal perspective, it'll do this. From a business perspective, it'll do this. Some framing around their answer. That would be a good answer for that question. OK, so those are the 4 questions that I wanted to go through. The last step that I'd like to talk about in the interview process is what we call the panel presentation. So the idea of the panel presentation is that after they've gone through all the one-on-ones, maybe like a few days after, if there's good fit on both sides, like if you're excited about the candidate and the candidate's excited about you, we like to ask them to come and actually give a presentation in the office, like around a conference room table, to 8 to 10 people. And this is sort of to see how they do in a group dynamic, how they present their ideas, how clear they are. And so this is the prompt that we would give them. It's pretty intricate. What product or service has launched in the past 2 years that you believe is particularly revolutionary? What specifically does the product improve for its customers? Which aspects are especially well designed? How will this product impact market conditions and the competitive climate in the space? And then part 2, identify 3 areas of the product that could be improved. Explain how you would change the product to address these issues and how you would test whether these changes had a positive impact. So this goes pretty deep. And you're asking the candidate to prepare a 3 or 4 hour, 15, 20 slides worth of PowerPoint to come in and show you. And so I've heard great answers on this. A really memorable one about the Tesla Powerwall, another one about Class Dojo, which is education software, where the candidate had actually set up the environment like a Class Dojo classroom, so all of the people in the panel got gold stars when we asked good questions. It was really entertaining and interactive. So you get to see, how deep does this person go? How do they communicate? And most importantly, how do they do with tough Q&A on the spot? Because you want product managers who are spokespeople. You want product managers who are going to be able to do this every day at work, who are going to be able to go to board meetings and do this in front of a board, and who can really be spokespeople for your product. So that was the last step that we finished up with the panel. OK, so now we've found these great PMs. We've evaluated them. We know we want them. How do we close them? You got to do all the usual stuff that you do for every single candidate. So you got to maintain frequent contact. You have to be hands-on. You can't delegate it to recruiters. And you have them talk to all your fancy investors, all the stuff that you normally do. But then there's a few things that I think are particular to PMs to point out. So the way that I think about this is by thinking about, well, what are the reward centers in the PM brain? I've identified these 6. So having big impact, delighting users, having autonomy, getting recognition, getting some kind of financial outcome, and learning and growth. And I think that if you think about all the different job functions, and you think about specifically PMs after talking to hundreds of them, these 3 stand out as the ones that really, really motivate PMs. Impact, delighting users, and autonomy. I think about engineers. Engineers are oftentimes motivated by really interesting technical challenges. Designers are often motivated by craftsmanship and acceptance in the design community, recognition from the design community. But PMs, I find, really spike on impact, autonomy, and user delight. So then the framework is pretty simple. Find out which reward center they respond to, and then prove to them they will have impact at your company. Prove to them they will have autonomy at your company. And really ask yourself, are you willing to give this person autonomy at your company? But if you are, and if you can prove to them that they'll have it, you will close some great PMs. Thank you.